How did you enjoy yesterday? Isn't the whole subject of habits fascinating? You still ate regular food though, didn't you? I mean, I know you desperately want to make the changes, and after all, that's why you're on this program. But you have to trust me, you still need to wait just one more week. In fact, a week on Monday to start making changes. I really need you to interact with your journal, especially the habit loop, and please keep, every time you're eating a meal that you think might not be healthy, please keep writing it down in your journal. And I promise you that this is the only way to make everlasting change. Even if you've already started to resent the food that you're currently eating. And in fact, if you are starting to resent it, that's great. In fact, that's exactly what we want. However, if you're still really loving it, well, don't worry. I mean, that's just natural. It's the whole reason, in fact, why the first 2 weeks we do all this groundwork. You know that saying about a house built on dodgy foundations eventually falls down. Now today, I want to build on the pleasure versus happiness and the understanding of habits that you already have. And what I want to do is take a deep dive inside your brain. I want to take a complicated biology lesson and make it really understandable. To do that, we're going to combine some of the stuff we've learned over the last few days and overlay it with a deep understanding of what's going on inside your brain. Now, most people think of the brain as just one single organ, but we really should think of the brain as having multiple distinct areas. When it comes to helping you change your relationship with food and to regain control of your health, and for you to enjoy real freedom, the two parts that are most important to consider within your brain, one is called the limbic, and that sits just here, and then one right behind your forehead, known as the prefrontal cortex. The limbic part of your brain is millions of years old and drives all of your primal behaviors. It is responsible for behaviors such as eating, drinking, sex, nurturing the young, and taking fight or flight when under threat. It is the emotional part of your brain, and without it, well, you just wouldn't survive. It's the primal brain, and all mammals have one. The prefrontal cortex, however, is rational, more concerned with thinking about and strategizing for the future. It's the area of your brain that's involved with communicating with your loved ones and friends. It's the part of your brain there for accessing memories and conscious thoughts. It's there for planning future meals. Now, very few animals have the type of prefrontal cortex that humans have. And that's why we call it the human brain or the intelligent brain. From an evolutionary standpoint, this particular part of our brain has only been developed for a very short period. When we're overweight, it indicates that for many people, their primal brain, the limbic brain, is steering more of their behaviors. If we're being led by our primal brain, much of our focus resembles that of our Stone Age ancestors. Your primal brain didn't know when it might eat the next meal, so it sees all food as a life or death decision. And for 2 million years, the primal brain, its thoughts about food as survival were real. I mean, very, very real. Because for 2 million years, the threat of survival was one of the biggest dangers facing mankind. If you fast forward today though, where we have access to food 24/7, you start to see the problem that we're facing. Again, it's not your fault that you are overweight. Eating food as much as you can is what your primal brain, your limbic brain, is wired to do. But for you to lose weight, which you will, it is a matter of increasing the communication between your primal brain and your intelligent brain. If we can switch on the communication between the two and recognize which one is in control at any one point, then we can help you lose that weight for good. Together, we've got to get your prefrontal cortex in good working order. And like an engine, make sure it's firing on all cylinders. It needs the right oils. I mean, literally the right oils. I mean, there are cooking oils and fats in certain foods that will make it sluggish. And there are others that will make it fire wonderfully, making it easier for you to be in control. Putting the wrong oil as the big food manufacturers do in their packaged food and fast food. And they can pass control of all your food decisions from your clever brain, your intelligent brain, back to the primal brain, meaning one thing: more junk food. However, getting the right amount of sleep and exercise and reducing your stress levels, combined with topping up the right nutrients, and we can ensure that your intelligent brain is as powerful as possible, enabling it to overpower your primal brain's food choices. Over the coming weeks, a lot of what I will be saying will be subliminally feeding your prefrontal cortex, your human brain, so that it is powerful and dominant over your primal instincts. While your primal brain, your limbic part of the brain, was absolutely critical for survival, when every day both the threat of danger and starvation were real, well, today we've never been safer and had access to so much food. In fact, the biggest danger today is that we live in a life where there is now excess food and a different kind of stress. Not the acute, quick stress of a lion chasing us, but the chronic stress brought on by modern life. To survive and thrive in Western society, we need to flip the control of your brain over to your prefrontal cortex, your human brain, your intelligent brain. Now, I'm going to say the next two things really slowly so they sink in. The primal brain kept us alive when we had primal problems. But your human brain, it needs to be fully engaged to battle the new world problems. We've gone from primal problems to human problems, and we need to shift the control of your brain from the primal to the human area to face the challenges of living in a world where most dangers are created by humans themselves. Now, if you've ever read a book by Professor Steve Peters, The Chimp Paradox, you'll already understand some of the things we're going to be talking about today. But even if you have read the book, don't skip the rest today, because I take a slightly different approach. And by the way, The Chimp Paradox is a brilliant book. It's awesome, and it's one of the ones that I'm going to recommend that you read after you finish this reset in a few weeks' time. But until then, please don't read any books relating to health and well-being while you're on this journey. Otherwise, it might interrupt the process. It's so important you just follow this reset step by step, day by day, without any of the learnings in this area. And once you finish the reset, then by all means go out and do further studies. Okay, let's dive inside your brain. Your brain, which provides your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions, your habits. And as we've already learned, there are neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin, that control your pleasure and your happiness. Also, we've learned over recent days about how you make decisions, some consciously, but a lot subconsciously. And we heard from Dr. Wanzig about those 200 food decisions that we make each day, but about 90% of them, the vast majority of them, we make without even having a conscious thought. Then, on top of your neurotransmitters, you have that hard wiring of the limbic part of your brain telling you to eat as much as you can, whenever you can, and a whole bunch of hormones attempting to have their say too. The brain and psychology is indeed a hugely complex subject, but that said, today's chat is going to really give you a good understanding of what's going on inside your head. It's going to help you put the previous few days of learnings to good use. In other words, it's going to set the foundations for seeking more happiness than pleasure. And it's going to help you break those old habits and create some exciting new ones. While there are many different areas of the brain, all with their own functions, we're going to concentrate on just 3 of them. These are the 3 that make up the psychological mind and therefore shape your decisions around food. What are the 3 areas? Well, the prefrontal cortex and the limbic I've already mentioned, but we have one more, and it's called the parietal. We're going to borrow now a couple of comparisons from the chimp paradox. The prefrontal cortex we're going to call your intelligent brain. It is in fact who you are. Your parietal, we're going to call that the computer. And the limbic, we are going to call your gremlin. Your intelligent brain is rational and makes rational intelligent decisions, but it's quite slow to act. Your gremlin, while he is a gremlin and often gets many things wrong, is super fast. And it had to be because it's your gremlin, your primal brain, that had the fight or flight responses. It was the primal brain, your gremlin's job, to make sure you worked out whether to fight or flight. Today, your gremlin is still useful. I mean, he helps you from stopping out in front of a bus. And have you ever thought about why we judge a book by the cover? That's all done by your gremlin, by your limbic part of the brain, because again, to survive, we had to make decisions super quickly. Yes, first impressions really do count for survival. Is that snake going to kill me, or is that snake my dinner? Pretty important stuff, eh? First impressions. It's no good wondering or deliberating or pondering to see if that lion wants to eat you or whether that snake is poisonous. It's do or die. And that is the limbic part of the brain. That is your gremlin's job, to act super quickly. For this reason, motivation is an act of the gremlin, because it needs to be motivated to act immediately. I will explain later why I mention motivation and your gremlin. It's an important point, but I just want to see the idea right now. So your gremlin is super fast at making decisions. It's also very emotional. I want you to see your limbic, your gremlin, as a pet. You're not responsible for the nature of your gremlin, but you are responsible for managing it. This will all make sense as we progress. Your gremlin, just like a pet, is highly emotional. It doesn't think like your intelligent brain. Occasionally, that's a good thing. It might save your life one day, but sometimes, in fact, most of the time in the modern world, especially for food, your gremlin is a complete disaster. Let me give you an example of your gremlin and your intelligent brain and how they interact. Imagine you're in a clothing shop and you've fallen in love with a pair of jeans, you've tried it on, the emotions start going, your gremlin gets excited, he's thinking about all the comments you're going to get from your friends, and it's like, wow, these jeans are amazing. But then you have a look at the label and you realize the jeans are way more expensive than you thought. I mean, originally you thought they were on that, half price sale rack, but somebody's put them on the wrong rack and they're like way more expensive than you can now afford. But now you've got a problem. Your gremlin really wants them, but your intelligent brain is saying, no, I can't afford it, I can't justify it. But the gremlin is moaning, he's kicking his toys out of the pram, he's screaming, he's shouting, he's like a big child. And what happens in the end, you have this big fight, and more often than not, the gremlin wins. The intelligent brain caves in because this one's faster, it's louder, it's aggressive, and the gremlin often wins. Now, while the two parts of the brain, your intelligent and your gremlin, can get on together occasionally, most of the time they don't. They both believe that they could run your life without the other. The gremlin is always seeking pleasure. Without him, no sex, no human race. It was in your brain before you were born, but actually is not you. You are the intelligent brain. Let me say this again because this is super critical. Your gremlin developed before you were born, but actually is not you. You are the intelligent brain. This is part of the reason why I keep telling you that if you're overweight, it's not your fault. It is, in part, your gremlin's fault. It's your primal brain being so well developed. You would have been awesome 100,000 years ago. You'd probably have been head of a tribe, and you would definitely have lived longer than the average. As I've just said, your gremlin is like a pet. You're not responsible for all of its actions, but you are responsible for managing it. And just like if you've got a big dog, an Alsatian or something like that, it might be stronger than you. So it's wise to really get to know your gremlin and then nurture it and manage it. One of the fundamental secrets of a happy life is to learn how to manage your gremlin, and just like your dog, make sure it never bites or attacks you. To do this, you need to understand how your gremlin behaves and why it thinks and feels the way it does. You need to look out for when it's too dominant, too noisy, barking out demands, and then call on your intelligent brain to debate and control and with convincing arguments. Now, in the psychological part of the brain, and by that I mean the three parts that control our emotions, our thoughts, and where everything is processed, we have this third area that I haven't talked about yet called the parietal. This is effectively the computer area of the brain. And like a computer, it has no thoughts of its own. It needs to be programmed, and is actually programmed by either the gremlin or your intelligent brain. It's just a store of data with all the information being entered by either the gremlin or your intelligent brain. It reduces the workload of both your gremlin and your intelligent brain and can automate processes without them needing to take part, i.e. your habits. Habits like your subconscious food choices. The computer also has a second role though. With all that stored data, it also acts as a reference point, the library, where the intelligent brain and the gremlin are in dispute. Yesterday we talked about writing down the cues, actions and rewards of your habits and the internal dialogue that you have. Effectively, that internal dialogue is actually between your gremlin and your intelligent brain. Now, it's really important to start to identify when your gremlin is hacking your thoughts. It is important to see who currently has the upper hand with your food choices. It's really important to witness and understand that there are effectively two brains operating inside your head, and only one of them is you. If you miss out on one of those communications and you just reach for the biscuit and don't realize it until it's in your mouth, then most likely neither were involved and your computer simply took over, following a previous input from your gremlin. As Professor Steve Peters says, you and your gremlin think very different ways. As we go about our day receiving information from around us, they both receive the same input but interpret it very differently. The gremlin interprets it with feelings and impressions. With emotional thinking, the gremlin will often fill in the blanks and make assumptions. It has hunches and at times feels paranoid. It has gut feelings, sometimes right, sometimes wrong. But because it has to deal with our fight and flight, it is always super quick to react. Your gremlin, your limbic part of the brain, is often irrational, unstable, inconsistent. It's often very unpredictable. It never works with facts, but with what it believes to be true. It doesn't need any proof. Your brain, your intelligent brain, will always be looking for the facts and wants to establish the truth. Of course, to do this, it's a lot slower. It has to rationalize every decision that you make. It uses logical thinking, often forms an action plan. But what happens when they disagree? Well, as I mentioned before, the gremlin is far stronger, more powerful, very, very quick, and gets to control your thoughts and your actions. What you have to do is start to identify when this happens and put in place strategies that will help you gain control. And that's what I'm here to help you with. Sometimes you have to force a dialogue that goes something like this. Gremlin, I don't care how you feel. We're gonna have to do it anyway. Or sometimes the conversation might go, I don't care that you're not in the mood to go for a walk, but we're gonna do it anyway, and we can always have a debate afterwards. Now, watch out for your gremlin's childlike behavior. You know the one where the kids go, I need it, I need it, I need it. Sometimes you're gonna have to be strong and tell your gremlin, no, you don't need it, you just want it, but right now you're not having it, instead we're gonna eat this. You have to tell it, I know you want pleasure, but I want happiness. You want the taste, but I wanna see my abs. Other than in fight or flight, or in order to create offspring, or to avoid starvation, you can see how the gremlin is pretty much a pain in the brain in the modern world. If you have to sum up its job in one word, it would be survival. But in the modern world, it really just isn't as needed as in our primitive past. But sadly, your gremlin is still just as vocal. It still thinks that you live in the savannah or the jungle. Its decisions and inputs are very emotional, like a spoiled child, and it only sees things in black and white. It has that I need it mentality not logical, but totally irrational behavior in search of quick pleasures. And it never uses sound reasoning. It just throws around its muscle and might to try and get its own way. Can you see that unless you can control your gremlin, you're going to continually lose your battle with your weight? How do you control it? Well, that is what I'm going to show you over coming days. You're already, without realizing it, you've already started the process. You see, by filling in your habit loops in your journal, you're already starting to recognize the debates that go on inside your head. You're already beginning to push the blood flow back towards your intelligent brain, your prefrontal cortex. So here's a little trick. Your first trip at managing your gremlin. If you tell somebody that's close to you that you're going to do something, like lose weight, then you're more likely to do it. Why? Well, because your gremlin doesn't like feeling silly. It hates negative emotion. It's paranoid about what other people think. And while you'll often fight against your intelligent brain, externally, your gremlin knows that it's on the same team. So putting pressure on it to not fail will mean, and by telling other people on a diet, that your gremlin, for once, will be on the same side. Now here's something crucial to understand for weight loss. When you get stressed, you don't think straight, and that's because your gremlin goes into fight or flight. Stress causes the release of a hormone called cortisol, and it prepares the body for that fight or flight process. That's why I believe that when I'm personally stressed, the stress being a cue, I go straight for a glass of wine. You might turn to a chocolate bar or a can of Coke. But the trick is this, is to first realize that stress is an emotional cue set off by the gremlin. And next time you get one of those cues, you need to stop, pause, draw in a long, slow, deep breath, something I called LSD, but not that kind of LSD, long, slow, deep breath. And by doing that, you may be able to control your gremlin. Here's the brilliant author, Pete Cohen, talking about putting thinking ahead of feelings.
If we all went through the world and thought, I don't feel like this, then we wouldn't get anything done. Most of us have to do things regardless of how we feel. So what I would say to people is, if you don't feel like doing something that you know is going to serve you, that is good for you, and is for your greater good and the greater good of everyone around you, don't go by how you feel. Because your brain, the language of your brain is thoughts, the language of your body is feelings, right? So if you think of your feelings like your unconscious mind. So if you say something like, I really should exercise, chances are you'll produce a feeling that connects to that, which is one of, yeah, I don't want to do it. A feeling of effort, no, I don't want to spend effort. Or perhaps a better example is, I'm going to be late. Then you produce a feeling of stress that tells your brain that you were correct. We have to learn to think greater than we feel. So watch your thoughts, because they can take you in a number of different directions. If you have the thought of, I should exercise, or I'm going to exercise, minimize the time it takes to think and do. Just do, because once you do, how you want it to feel will come to you. Who do you know that exercises and after they've started exercising, they stop? Who do you know who goes into the kitchen and starts cooking, cook to start chopping something and then walk away and not do it? Very few people. The inspiration that we want, the motivation that we want, it comes by starting. So I wouldn't say just do it, I'd just say just get started.
Okay, let's study your brain in a little more detail. It's made up of billions of neurons. These are nerve cells that are in constant communication with each other. They communicate through an elaborate neural network. When they gang up together, like-minded neurons are called a nucleus. They connect different parts of the brain with one another. See them as motorways, connecting cities, and the neurotransmitters as the cars going in between. These different areas perform different tasks. Using PET scans, scientists can actually measure blood flow, can actually see different areas of the brain light up when patients are shown pictures of different foods or objects. This stuff is like really happening. It's very, very real. All day, every day, different parts of the brain light up via these neural pathways. So what happens when you see that chocolate bar, or even when you have just made the decision to eat it? To find out, let's look at the first of the three groups of pathways, the one where rewards, pleasures are transmitted via the neurotransmitter dopamine. Remember we talked about this yesterday. Dopamine acts a bit like a hormone, but technically it's a neurotransmitter. This is a chemical sending a message, a neurotransmitter message, from one part of the brain to another. Amongst other things, they send motivational messages. It's also a learning pathway. It's a pathway that teaches us what feels good. It's also a hedonistic pathway, which basically means it's always in the pursuit of pleasure. Think of shopping, shopaholics, chocolate, chocoholics, alcohol, alcoholics, sex, sexaholics. In fact, anything you can put olic at the end of is a hedonistic pleasure. And the message and the signals travel along this pathway. So we could call it the rewards pathway or hedonistic pathway. And I typically call it the hedonics pathway, and later you're going to see why. The second pathway inside your brain is the happiness pathway, the contentment pathway, where serotonin travels, sending messages of happiness. Your third and final pathway, that's your stress and fear pathway, where your fight and flight takes place. It's where all your stress hormones, your cortisol travel. These three pathways in your brain generate virtually all of your human emotions, especially rewards, pleasures, and happiness. Okay, technical lesson over. I just wanted to mention it because it's going to help with understanding some of this stuff later on in the reset. Let's get back to your gremlin. We need to be kind of schizophrenic with our gremlin and intelligent brain. Now, I fully appreciate that being schizophrenic is a terrible disease, but so again is being obese. So actually, I won't apologize for using the comparison. Your gremlin wants that junk food. It sends cues and signals down your hedonistic pathway, and it hates not being listened to. But your intelligent brain, quite rightly, is trying to say no. It's all about your internal negotiations. One thing that's super important is to at all times be honest with both your intelligent and your gremlin parts of your brain. If you go off the rails for an afternoon and have something to eat or a snack that you know isn't going to be good for your health, instead just explain to your gremlin why on this one occasion you're going to let him have his or her way. If you lie to yourself, you'll damage that relationship with both your intelligent and gremlin areas of your brain and will confuse the heck out of your computer. However, if you can reason with your gremlin and change the action rather than lying to yourself, is what will lead to your fledgling new habits to fester and eventually die off. One excuse, one story becomes a second or a third. And once you start lying to yourself, it becomes easier and easier. And then eventually it becomes habitual, habit forming. You've been losing the battle with your gremlin for so long now, and that's why you're overweight. Come on, admit it. You knew all along that ice cream and chocolates or whatever you've been binging on in the past wasn't good for you. You really knew it wasn't good for you, but you didn't know until now why it was that you kept eating it. And let me say again, please, please, please don't change anything you eat just yet. You're not ready, okay? We still need to build some stronger foundations first. And I know you're desperate to start shifting that way, but please trust me on this. Don't change anything just yet. But do keep writing down your feelings, your internal conversation with your gremlin in your journal. The more of your internal dialogue that you commit to paper, the easier it's going to be to make those changes for the better. And the great news is, in week 3, when we start making those changes, within just 21 days of starting to manage your gremlin, you're going to see some amazing results. Within just 21 days, not only will your weight start to fall off, and for good this time, but you're also going to feel healthier, have more energy, and start to feel liberated, a true sense of freedom. Let's hear some interesting facts from my good friend, Dr. Asim Malhotra.
This stuff is reversible. And it's reversible quickly. So when I say that, one of the interesting things I discovered with my own research into this is that dietary changes impact on heart disease risk and risk of heart attacks, etc. Actually, true heart attacks and death are very rapid, even within a few weeks to months. Just by changing your diet, it's not a long haul, which I think is important for my patients to understand as well, because I think if they think it's an uphill battle, I think they're less likely to try that change and think, bloody hell, this is, if it's taken years for me to get this way, it's going to take years for me to reverse it. Not true. Just to give you another example on that, Steve, one thing which is really fascinating that really people find really interesting to hear is when we got dramatic reductions in smoking prevalence in the population, the heart attack rates and death rates dropped really quickly. I'll give you one example. Helena, Montana, in the United States, introduced a public smoking ban. Just a public smoking ban, so it was out of the environment, smoke. And within 6 months, there was a 40% decrease, absolute decrease in heart attack rates.
Wow.
Tobacco lobby came in.
It
was. Tobacco lobby came in, law was rescinded, so then the smoking ban was, they got rid of it. And then within a short space of time, the heart attack rates went back up. How do you explain that biologically? Just 30 minutes of exposure to passive smoking increases the clotability of blood. We call it platelet activity. Increases the clotability of blood. You remove that from the environment, the clotability of blood reduces, less heart attacks. We should think about diet in the same way. And the impact on diet and health seems to be similar. So it's never too late to really make a difference, and you will notice an impact very, very quickly.
Isn't that truly encouraging? And remember, Asim is one of the leading cardiologists in the UK, so he knows his stuff. I know you want to start right now, but let's get the foundations right. Then, when we're really ready for it together, and within just 21 days, you're going to see some amazing results. And then we still have 2/3 of the weeks to go together. 2/3 of the weeks to really cement those new habits, to further learn how to manage your gremlin, and to reprogram your taste buds. Okay, let's change direction just a little. In 2012, I was awarded the trophy for building the UK's fastest company. In fact, I'm still the only person in the UK to have won it twice and in totally different industries. In computers back in 1998, and then jewellery in 2012. Today, I have over 1,000 team members around the world. I mention this not to be big-headed, but as you can assume, if I twice built the #1 growing company in the UK, I must have a lot of willpower, a lot of determination. Yet, through that exact same period, I went from being slender to being obese. No, obesity is not caused by a lack of willpower. If you're fat or obese right now, you probably have lots of willpower. The idea of blaming being fat on the individual is just a convenient lie for both the food industry and in some ways the pharmaceutical industries. Let me say this one more time. It is not your fault that you're overweight. It's actually almost the opposite to a lack of willpower, as you'll learn. After Richard Branson handed me the trophy for the fastest growing company for the second time, we became really close friends. In fact, Richard became the patron of a charity that I set up. And Richard encouraged me for years to write a book. So I did. I wrote a business book explaining how I'd grown those companies so quickly. And I'm going to say something I know I've said a few times already. I want to expand on how those 10 big companies became the biggest food companies in the world, how just 10 companies control virtually every single bit of food you eat that's in a package or that has been advertised. And remember, there are only 3 ways to grow a company. You've got to get more customers, get them to buy more frequently, and make more cash out of each transaction. And that's it. There is no other way to grow a business. Just those 3 ways. Now, if only 10 companies control virtually everything you and I buy in a packet from a supermarket, then they're constantly trying to get you and I to switch from the other 9 companies' products to their products. They're at war with one another. And some of the wars they fight fill dozens and dozens of brilliant books that may be worthy a read when you get to the end of the reset. But let's look at those 3 in a little more detail. And I promise you, this is completely relevant to you losing weight. In fact, it's mission critical stuff. So the first thing the big 10 food companies have to do is get more new customers. To do this, the big food companies must brainwash us with subliminal marketing messages to get us to switch to their products. Billions and billions are spent on adverts with gorgeous, happy-looking models. They often prey on our emotions that were subconsciously developed in our childhood. Next, number 2, they've got to get the frequency increased. They need to develop food that makes us feel even more hungry after eating it, so we consume more and more. To do this, they need to remove good nutrition and add lots of sugar. They have to get us addicted to their products. They love to make us crave their foods. Again, let's watch a small clip.
These are super sniffers, super tasters.
And more bitter.
On the prowl, the special forces first responders to the call for the next best taste.
The mandarin notes are fantastic in this.
Yeah.
They're braving the wilds of a citrus grove in Riverside, California, where Jim Hassel, whose nose and palate are legendary, leads a Givaudan team on a taste safari. Big game hunters in search of the next great taste in soft drinks. Their inspiration, the greatest flavorist of them all, Mother Nature.
Seeing everything that's available really just drives the whole creative process.
Like an artist going to Rome or something.
Correct.
But the ultimate purpose is to sell more soft drinks or whatever.
That's what we're in the business of. Selling flavors.
Let's go sniffing. Our perception of taste is largely located in the nose, but described in the language of music.
Do you get like a tropical note, a little bit of papaya, potentially?
Yeah. And cotton candy note.
Cotton candy a little bit.
They are plotting how to move the flavors they find in this grove to your supermarket shelf, and then on to your stomach.
The big 10 food companies have to make more profit in each transaction. How do they do that? They have to make the items that we buy cheaper and cheaper. They have to use cheaper and cheaper ingredients. They have to develop chemicals to make the food last longer on the shelves of the supermarket. Why do I want you to know all this? Because once you realize that the big food companies focus on just these 3 things to make more money, and that they have huge armies of very clever people working in each department to get more customers, using tactical brainwashing through both advertising and brightly colored packaging, then they try and get us addicted to the food or drink to increase the frequency at which we buy them. And thirdly, make the food as cheap as possible to make more profit in each transaction. Once you realize this, you might, well, in fact, I'm not going to tell you just yet. Next time you see a food advert on the television or on the internet, look at how they're playing on all your emotions. Look at the message that they're sending to your gremlin. Let me now tell you about something I call the vicious obesity circle. I discovered this when I was writing an article for a column. It revolves like this. The big food corporations, just like the cigarette companies, fill their products with ingredients that are addictive. You and I then see their misleading adverts showing beautifully fit and healthy people consuming these foods, and we go out and we buy them. The more we buy, the more the supermarkets feature them in what we call end caps or near the checkout, which further leads us to buy more. You and I then consume all of these unhealthy products and get fatter. But as we're still exposed to the adverts of the slim models pretending to eat them, we assume that it can't be the food that's making us fat. So we carry on buying these foods over and over again. And we keep blaming ourselves for being overweight. We need to kick their processed foods and sugary products into touch. Together, we need to stop buying their hugely profitable packaged foods, which are stuffed full of dangerous oils and infused with chemicals. What is not your fault that you are overweight? The fault being a combination of the fact that your gremlin survival instincts are hardwired to maximize available food, combined with the fact that the food companies do everything they possibly can to hack your gremlin in order for it to crave more food. That said, while it's not your fault, the responsibility to reduce your weight and regain your health and ultimately your freedom rests with you. Thanks for spending the time here again today. I really hope you enjoyed the session learning about your gremlin. Carry on filling in your habit loops in your journal. Have a fabulous, fabulous day, and I look forward to spending time with you tomorrow.